In today's agenda that we're going to have, we're going to talk a little bit about Endicia overview as well as processing with Endicia Dazzle, and Mike will head that presentation. And then we're going to switch over to Webgility overview and how ECC integrates with QuickBooks and Endicia Dazzle, and follow by an in-depth Q&A. So now I'm going to switch over to Mike.
Thank you, Brenda. Okay, so Endicia is the leading internet postage provider based on volume. We are a 10-year-old company, although we've been doing mailing software for about almost 20 years now. The software that I'll be demonstrating today, Dazzle, has been around since the early 1990s. And again, our internet postage service started in 2000. We are the largest, like I said, internet postage provider based on volume. A couple of months ago, we became the first internet postage provider to reach $5 billion. That's billion with a B in postage. Let me go over some of the advantages for using Endicia beyond the integration with Webgility. If you're using an internet postage provider such as us, you qualify for what the post office calls commercial-based pricing. This is a discounted rate for priority and express mail in the international equivalents. The discounts for priority vary. It depends on how heavy the package is and how far it's going, but on average you're looking at about 5.5%. Express mail is a straight 5% discount. Priority international and express international are 5% and 8% discounts as well. But even if it's not that class of service, there are discounts, additional discounts that are available. Delivery confirmations at a discount, it's 19 cents for most classes of service, except for priority mail, where there isn't a charge. To sign up for an account through us, just go to endicia.com/webgility. That will take you to this page here. You would sign up for an Endicia Premium account, which is $15.95 a month. You can get a discount on the service fees by paying a year in advance. It will ask you for information like where are you located, how do you want to pay for your postage, and it will ask for payment information. We will then create an account for you and email you your account number within about a half hour, and also email you the link to download the software program, again, Dazzle. Just sign up, install the software, put in your account information, and then you're ready to go. Let me give you a short demonstration on how the Endicia service will work, or the Dazzle software program will work. So on the screen, you're looking at an image of our label. You can put in a short message or a graphic. I'll show you just by clicking on the blue push pin up at the top. There'll be a place to put in or select a graphic. Just click and paste it onto your label, and then you're ready to go. This way it identifies your label, the package that you're sending out. One big advantage of using our service is what's called Stealth Endicia, and I'll show you how that works. I go under Postage Options here. I'll move this off to the side. Go to Premium Service Options. Say Use Stealth Endicia, Hide Postage Value. Now you notice up here it says $4.80. That's the commercial-based pricing for a 1-pound package going one zone. Now you see the dollar amount of postage, and now you don't. It says U.S. postage and fees paid. That way you don't have to explain to your customer the difference between shipping and handling and postage. Now that is available no matter what class of service you use, and is also available if you're using our international layouts as well. Then all you would need to do is click on the print button up at the top. It will ask you what weight is the package. I can select that from the list. I can put information such as group code or reference ID as well, and select insurance. and then I would go ahead and click on the print button, and a label will print out. Put that onto the package, and you're done. Now, one big advantage that we have is if you accidentally, like I just did, printed out a label, and I need to do a refund, it's very simple as far as getting a refund. You'll notice there's a delivery confirmation number down at the bottom. All I would need to do is go into the postage log and highlight the item down below that I just printed out. Now, if I need to reprint, there's an icon up here that says reprint. I click on the reprint button, and it will send an exact duplicate of that label to the printer. That way you're not double charged for the postage. In this case, I want to do a e-refund. So what I would do is I would click on the e-refund button, and it will ask if you really want to do a refund on this item. And I would click on yes, and then it will submit it for refund, and I've got it. The post office will wait 2 weeks to make sure that the label hasn't been processed, and then the money will be credited back into your account. Now, one other feature that I'd like to show you is called Scan, and let me do this. I'm going to log on to my account on Endicia.com. And here's my account page on Endicia.com. And under Tools, I can create a scan form. Now, what a scan form does is it allows you to print a report at the end of the day that links everything that has delivery or signature confirmation or some form of tracking to a single form. And when your carrier comes by to pick up, he or she would scan that barcode, and then all of the items marked on that form will be marked as being accepted into the mail stream. And when your customer looks online, as far as the status of the package, it will say that this item was picked up on the 23rd of September, 2010, and basically that it's on its way. Now, there's some other items that you can do as well on the account page on Endicia.com. You have the ability to look up a package, and in which case what you can do is put in the information about the client that you send information to, put in their name, put in their zip code, and it will tell you what the status is of each of the shipments that it finds. And you can also arrange for a carrier pickup. So if you have some items that you want, at least one of the items needs to be priority mail or express mail, but basically it's an electronic version of raising the red flag on a mailbox. It tells your carrier that there's a package to be picked up, and they'll come by and pick up as part of their route the next business day. Okay. Pretty much that covers everything as far as the Endicia service is concerned. I will send it back over to Parag, and we can go from there.
Great, thanks, Mike. We'll just wait to switch over the presentation here, and I'll click and show my screen.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you, Mike. So hello, everyone. My name is Parag. I see a few familiar names in our attendee list, so welcome again. And for all the new attendees, thank you for joining. What we covered initially was kind of an overview of the Endicia Dazzle software program. As Mike showed, it's a very simple application that's basically installed on the desktop, and you can easily create both domestic and international labels with it. In terms of Webgility and ECC, we'll talk a little bit about how our software, ECC, integrates with Endicia, and also cover some of the details of the functionality provided by it outside of the shipping integration as well. So covering a little bit about Webgility, Intuit has certified us as a gold developer for QuickBooks integration applications. We are the sole developers of the ECC product. In terms of the integration, it currently integrates with a little over 20 online shopping cart platforms and marketplaces, including Amazon and eBay. We support a number of shipping carriers, and of course we'll keep our focus today's presentation primarily on Endicia and USPS postage. The editions of QuickBooks that we support are pretty much across the board and, that are on the PC. We have customers around the world in the US, Canada, UK, Australia, and South Africa. And we currently have offices here in San Francisco, and a few development centers of ours are located in India. To give you a little bit of an overview of the ECC application, for some of you that have been using our product for a while, you probably are familiar with this. For a lot of the new folks that have joined, this is a diagram you might have seen on our website, and it kind of gives you a pretty simple sort of schematic of the functionality provided by ECC. So step one is really ECC bringing all the online orders into the desktop application. Step two is to generate a shipping label, which we'll talk about in more detail in regards to Endicia Dazzle. Once the shipping label is generated, the tracking number is sent back over to ECC. And once the tracking number is in, we can subsequently post the order into QuickBooks, QuickBooks Point of Sale, or QuickBooks Enterprise Editions. And last but not least, we can send the order confirmation back to the customer, including the tracking information. So basically fills the end-to-end cycle of the post-order management process. ECC is a multi-channel application, as we talked about, so you can configure it to work with both your marketplace accounts and your own online store. It, of course, generates shipping labels. It also has an inventory module that helps you synchronize the catalog and also the price and quantity information. It has a built-in scheduler app, and we'll take a quick look at that as well to see how ECC is able to automate a lot of the tasks in terms of downloading orders and posting to QuickBooks. It is a multi-user application, so you can set up several users to use ECC for QuickBooks or for shipping. And we'll also cover a little bit more in terms of the demo today of how it integrates with Endicia, and if you have a multi-user setup, how you can use it to get different users in your company generating labels with Dazzle. From a back-end perspective, it uses Access as a database, which helps us keep it very lightweight and very simple in terms of the installation process. So that's a kind of an overview of ECC. From a compatibility perspective, ECC works with the desktop editions of QuickBooks here in the US, Simple, Pro, Premier, Enterprise, Point of Sale as well. We also do integrate with QuickBooks Canada, UK, Australia, and South Africa. We'll now jump into a demo of ECC, and what I'm going to cover is talk a little bit about the installation process. The application itself comes in two parts. ECC comes with an online store module, which is going to depend on the actual shopping cart that you are using for your online store. If you're using a marketplace account such as Amazon or eBay only, you do not require a module. The second part is kind of the key piece of the application, which is the ECC desktop app. It comes with a Windows installer. You pretty much go through just a simple guided wizard to install the application. The online store module is installed at the location where your online store is located, whereas the ECC desktop software is installed at your local network where you have your QuickBooks and your Endicia Dazzle setup. In terms of the setup process, there's a configuration wizard that guides you through creating a profile, which is a connection between your shipping, QuickBooks, and your online store. You can then configure all of your transaction settings, configure how to process shipping, processing and generating packing slips for your orders. There's a detailed dashboard where you can look at the order details, generate your Endicia labels, and post the orders into QuickBooks. as I mentioned, comes with an inventory sync module and a scheduler which automates a number of your tasks. So in terms of the shipping process, we'll go through that in detail. I'm going to jump right over to ECC and give you a quick overview of the application. So as I start ECC, the first thing that loads up is the My Profile screen. The My Profile screen is a list of all the stores and connections that I have set up. For the purposes of this demo, I have a profile created here, which we'll use. And depending on the license that you have with ECC, you can create one or more store profiles. For the purpose of this demo, I have created a profile that works with QuickBooks Pro Premier Edition and works with a sample Magento installation. And we're going to be using Endicia Dazzle for generating our shipping labels. So the first step of creating a profile is getting it to connect with QuickBooks. We specify the version of QuickBooks, the QuickBooks company file type, the file mode, and we test the store connection, and the QuickBooks connection is successful. We then move to the next step, provide the access details to connect it to the online store. It connects very much seamlessly with the module that we provide, so there's no downloading or uploading of any kind of external files required. Everything occurs behind the scenes through web services, so everything is point of click and the data is exchanged securely using XML. Once I've established my store connection, I provide my store information, I hit Save Profile, and I'm now taken to the configuration screen. We have a number of webinar videos and several other specific videos on each of these screens. So I'll kind of skip through some of these, give you a quick overview, and then get to the core of our presentation today, which is specifically around shipping. So the configuration process is a wizard-based approach where you can download all of your settings, configure your transactions of how you'd like to record your orders into QuickBooks. You can configure how you manage your customers, matching up your customers that come in from your online store and how you put them into QuickBooks. You can specify inventory settings to match up your catalog, and if the items are not created in QuickBooks at the click of a button or automatically, ECC will create those products in QuickBooks for you. You can also manage your orders, so you can specify the statuses of the orders that you would like to download and at what point you would like to go in and process the particular order from an ECC standpoint. I can set up my payments and specify if ECC is going to be used to actually process payments or whether all of your payments are already generated in your online store. You can also use ECC to capture payments for transactions that are previously authorized. So as many of you might be aware, the best practice is to charge the credit card after you've done the shipping if there's a delay in process of when you're going to be doing your shipping. So ECC does provide the option, if you use authorize.net or PayPal, to be able to process payments after they have been initially authorized in your store. Jumping into shipping, this is where ECC can be set up to generate shipping labels with a number of different carriers. I see a question that has come up in the chat window here. It says, can I use multiple shippers with ECC? The answer is yes. As you'll see on this screen, in terms of the ECC setup process, the first step is to specify whether I do ship my orders or not, because in some cases you may have a drop ship or digital products where you don't do any shipping, but ECC does provide the option. If you don't want to use shipping, you don't have to. But in case you are shipping your orders, which is going to be the case most of the times, you then select a line item in which you're going to be recording your shipping charges. You set up an item in QuickBooks called shipping or whatever you'd like to name it, as long as it's of an item that's a service type, because that's how you would record your shipping charges. You can configure ECC to record your shipping charges. Subsequently, you can select the shipping processor that you wish to use. So currently, ECC works with USPS, specifically with Endicia Dazzle, and for UPS, we integrate with UPS WorldShip, and for FedEx, you can also use the QuickBooks Shipping Manager. We'll be doing some additional webinars to cover some more of the shipping carriers in detail. For the purposes of this demo, we'll focus primarily on Endicia Dazzle. And for Endicia Dazzle, I can basically select this checkbox to enable Endicia Dazzle as a shipping provider. Now, Mike covered the Endicia Dazzle software and how to generate a shipping label directly from within Dazzle. The way that ECC works with Dazzle, there's a couple of setup steps, so we'll talk a little bit about that, and we'll go through that in terms of a demo as well. So once I enable Endicia Dazzle here in ECC, I then need to configure Dazzle. So before I get to the configuration steps, I do need to ensure that Dazzle is ready to start communicating with ECC. So I'll pop back into my presentation and we'll go through what are some of the steps required in order for ECC to work with Endicia Dazzle. So first and foremost, as Mike mentioned, you can sign up for an Endicia premium account. A premium account is kind of the basic requirement in order for ECC to communicate with Endicia. The cost of the premium account is $15.95, and you can sign up at endicia.com/Webgility. And also just a quick note for some of our customers that have joined or some prospective customers who are looking to use Endicia Dazzle. If you are already using Endicia, please do let our sales and support teams know. With our partnership with Endicia Dazzle, we're going to be providing some additional services and training for our mutual accounts, so we'd love to hear from you and for us to know if you are using Dazzle. Please let our sales team know at sales@webgility.com, and we'll keep you posted on additional promotions and or information that we'll be providing for our Endicia customers that are also using ECC. In terms of the way that ECC works with Endicia Dazzle, similar to our communication with various online store applications, ECC exchanges XML files with Endicia Dazzle, and the Dazzle software is ultimately the application that ends up printing out the label, and it sends the tracking number back over to ECC. So let's take a look at the Endicia Dazzle setup screen. As you open up your Endicia Dazzle software under the Postage Options menu, first we need to enable XML monitoring in Endicia Dazzle. The screen sort of looks like this, and then you specify the time intervals for it to communicate with Dazzle. And we'll take a demo of this as well. The second step is to configure ECC to connect with Dazzle and ensure that they're sharing a common folder for exchanging the XML files, and then you can specify some default settings. So let's jump right in and take a look at a demo of how to get Endicia Dazzle configured. I'll go ahead and open Endicia Dazzle. It's going to establish a connection with my Dazzle account. I'm going to go over to Postage, go to Options. Under my options, of course, there are a number of other settings that are applicable to how Endicia Dazzle itself operates. But for the purposes of integration with ECC, we go under the Premium Service Options tab. Under the Premium Service Options tab, I see a section here for Monitor this directory for XML files. And in most cases, this is just going to be a default. It's going to be the Public Documents folder under Endicia, Dazzle, there's XML. If this XML folder doesn't already exist, please go ahead and create it so that you can use this for monitoring. Once you have enabled this directory for monitoring of XML files, ECC will be able to communicate with Dazzle using this folder. Here, we also will specify the time interval for how frequently we'd like to keep tracking that XML folder. Depending on the number of labels I generate throughout the day, typically 5 to 10 seconds is a good recommended interval so that you can generate labels every 5 to 10 seconds and you won't have to wait for Dazzle to pick those labels up. So I configure this to be every 5 to 10 seconds. Also, as Mike had mentioned, we can enable stealth postage by an option here, and even from within ECC, we have the option to enable stealth postage. Once I have enabled this, I go ahead and click on OK and make sure I keep a note of that XML folder. And now I minimize Dazzle, and I'm going to switch over to ECC. Under ECC, as you noted, we were on the Shipping tab. We said Configure Shipping, and we enabled Endicia Dazzle. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on Configure Shipping, which brings up the Endicia Dazzle configuration screen. Here, first thing I need to specify is the Dazzle installation location. I can browse to that location, and the option I'm going to select is under Program Files, Envelope Manager, Dazzle. Remember, we want to specify the location where the Dazzle program is located, so it's typically going to be under Program Files, Envelope Manager, Dazzle. Next, I need to specify the XML folder location. This is the same as the location we provided in Endicia Dazzle. So I can either copy and paste it from Endicia Dazzle's settings, or I can browse to it. And that location, again, is under C, Users, Public Documents, Endicia Dazzle XML. Remember, if that folder doesn't exist, you can always go ahead and create it. Now I see a couple of questions trickling in. I'll try to get to a couple of those. The question I have here is, do you integrate with any weight scales? The answer is yes. We currently integrate with the Mettler Toledo PS60 scale, and I'll give you a quick demo of that in just a second. I see a few other questions. I'll kind of hold on that and give you a demo as we walk through the default settings here. So once I have Dazzle installation, XML folder location, I then also need to provide the layout folder location. And the layout folder location is pretty much the location that's going to be a folder above the XML folder. So it's usually the Public Documents Endicia Dazzle location. And the way that you can tell whether the layout location is accurate is that once the layout location is specified correctly, you'll notice the layout drop-down at the bottom starts to show you a list of all the layout files. And these are all the layout files that ECC has picked up from Endicia Dazzle. Once I have connected Endicia Dazzle with ECC, I can also specify the default settings. Now the default settings are essentially a starting point that helps you generate new shipping labels without having to configure everything again. So I can specify my shipping method, which could be priority mail. I can specify whether I'd like to have delivery confirmation, signature confirmation, or none. I can advance my shipping by a couple of days. I can also specify a package type, a default length, the insurance parameter, whether I'd like to auto print in a test mode, custom forms, whether it's a stealth postage, oversize, or what my default layout is. Remember, layouts are a starting point. So if you specify a default layout and you specify the default settings on the screen, all of your labels will get defaulted to that as a setting. But you can always change your settings when you're actually generating the label. So we'll take a look at that. Once I have specified my defaults, I hit on Save, and now my settings for Endicia Dazzle are saved successfully. I now hit the Close button. Now the question in regards to the USB weight scale, the next section here is for enabling my USB weight scale. And if I had the Mettler Toledo PS60 scale configured, I could simply click on Show Devices, and it would pull up a list of any scales that I have connected. And as you can see in this particular case, I don't have a scale connected. But we will be adding support for additional Endicia scales as well. and we'll talk a little bit more about that and kind of all the features upcoming in subsequent slides. In terms of an integration process as well, notice you have a map shipping methods option where you can also set up mapping of your online store shipping methods with QuickBooks. So from an end-to-end integration process, you can specify where your label methods are coming from your online store. If you're getting your online store method as priority mail and you'd like to record it into QuickBooks as US mail or a specific method, you can do all of your mapping from here as well. Now that I have ECC configured to talk with Dazzle, and I have Dazzle as well connected and waiting for shipping labels from my end, I'm going to go ahead and hit Save and Continue. The next screen here is my taxes screen. I can configure taxes and shipping with different carriers here, and I can specify for taxes whether I wish to use QuickBooks taxes or also use the taxes calculated at my online store. Last but not least, in terms of a setup, for a shipping process, it's fairly important that you also have a pretty good packing slip. So with ECC, we do provide a packing slip module where you can specify your company logo, the text used in the footer, additional display options, and item details to be displayed, and I'll give you an overview of how that shipping label looks. I hit Save and Close, and I proceed to the ECC dashboard. The ECC dashboard gives you a snapshot of all of your orders. You can see on the screen my download status when I last downloaded the orders. I can generate a year-to-date sales graph. I have my Twitter feed indicating the latest updates on Webgility and ECC. We also send out a lot of tweets from our partners such as Endicia, so you'll get updates on those as well. We also provide news on upcoming webinars and launches, and you can also get help from the screen. I can click on the Get Orders button to download any new orders from my website, or I can use the scheduler to download orders as well automatically. Let's jump over to a demo and look at the shipping process. I go under the New Orders tab, and I see a number of orders that I've downloaded from my online store. I can take a look at one of these orders by double-clicking it. Once I double-click it, I'll see the details of the order in terms of its SKU, the name, the payment method details, the shipping service selected, order notes. I can look at the customer information, their billing and shipping address. I can also see the history of this order. I hit on OK, and I can go back to the screen. Now, let's go ahead and generate a test label with Endicia Dazzle. So now that I have my ECC configured and Dazzle configured, I'll close out of Dazzle, and Dazzle is now going to be waiting to receive a label from my end. I'll select the particular order and click on Process Shipping. Now ECC brings up the shipping label screen. Here you'll see that I'm shipping this order. The ship date is the 21st, which is the order date. The weight is pre-filled based on the weight of the items that came in from my online store. Now that we have the default options pre-selected here, I can go in and make any changes I wish to make with the particular shipping label here. So if I like, I can change the shipping method, the confirmation type, the package, specify any additional weight, change the layout, stealth postage, or also provide any kind of additional options here. So once I have selected this, I'm going to go ahead and use a test mode for this particular label. I click on Generate USPS Label with Endicia Dazzle. You'll notice Endicia Dazzle opens up automatically. It pre-fills all the details, so the 2-pound small flat rate box, priority mail, ship date is today with delivery confirmation. It brings in the value. It also has the reference ID, which was the online store's order number. And once that you have the reference ID details here and the labels are all set up, I can click on Test Print. This sends out the label over to the printer, and I'm done, I can close out of Endicia Dazzle, and the tracking number is then sent back over to ECC, and the order will get marked shipped. Of course, in this case, we were using a test mode, so you don't see that update. But basically, that's it. You have a point-and-click interface to generate the label with Endicia Dazzle. You can make any edits you like prior to the label. Once the label is printed and you are able to process the label, it sends back the tracking number over to ECC, and ECC is now done with the tracking process, and you can then post the order into QuickBooks. So if I select the order, click on Post to QuickBooks, it will go ahead and process the order details, look for mismatched items and customers. It will go ahead and post the order into QuickBooks and bring a checkbox here indicating that the order has been posted. If I click on the green icon, the order then opens up in QuickBooks, and now I have the entire order as a sales receipt in QuickBooks along with all the item details and so forth. Last but not least, I can click the Post to Store button, and that will post the online order once the shipping is completed, and it'll mark it as a completed order, and the customer will then be notified that the order is complete. So there's a pretty simple workflow of automatically downloading orders, one-click processing of the shipping label, posting the order into QuickBooks, and then posting it also into the store. Now let's take a look at some of the things that you can also automate. So ECC also comes with a scheduler application, and the scheduler app runs in the system tray. So I'll open up the settings here, and the scheduler here, you'll see, has settings where I can download configuration, customers, and so forth every so often. I can set it to automatically download orders from my online store. I can also post to QuickBooks automatically, retrieve the tracking ID if I'm using QuickBooks Shipping Manager, posting to store, archiving orders. Also, the inventory sync module can be automated, and I can also enable or disable notifications. So that's the scheduler application, and now I'll switch back over to ECC and give you a quick overview of some of the other features in terms of inventory. For the inventory management portion, ECC is able to get products from your online store and retrieve items from your QuickBooks company file. It can generate a report of all the items that are in QuickBooks and that are in your online store. So you can subsequently generate a report of the items that are matched. So now that we have the report, you'll see here on the left I have about 72 items in my QuickBooks, 60 items in my online store, 11 of them match up. It also shows me conflicting items, which means that these are items that have a mismatch in either the price or the quantity, and I can simply select an item and hit the sync button to sync those up. I can map items, and also there might be some items that I don't care to use for inventory syncing, so I can hit the ignore button and ignore them. Under the Manage Products tab, I can also create new items. So I can transfer items from QuickBooks to my online store. So this is a tab to create missing items in QuickBooks. And I can also create missing items in the online store. So this is a great way to get your initial store set up or manage your catalog on an ongoing basis. You can transfer products from QuickBooks to your store or vice versa. And in some cases, you don't have matched up items. You can also use a mapping process to map your products between QuickBooks and your online store. As we talked about, ECC also does provide a multi-user setup, so you can get an add-on user license and configure each user to be able to process payments, shipping, QuickBooks, and more. So you can control their permissions and their username and passwords, all managed centrally. For a lot of customers that use shipping labels and have multiple team members generating shipping, the shipping settings are specific to each add-on user. So if you've got Endicia Dazzle installed on more than one computer and you wish to connect a couple of users to it, you can always get ECC on those few users' accounts and have ECC connect to each one separately. Also, there's a search orders option. So if you've got old orders that you can search, you can delete. So there's a number of order management capabilities, QuickBooks integration capabilities, and of course shipping and inventory management. So that's kind of an overview of Webgility's ECC product and Endicia's Dazzle product. Another question I have here is how do I cancel a refund request with Dazzle? So if you've made a refund request, it appears in Dazzle, and it can be done there. Mike, if you would, I guess, could you address in case of if someone's actually requested a refund and they want to actually cancel that refund request, is there a way to do that?
Yeah, well, let me sort of, as a redo, show you how you would do the refund. So I click on this, and I click on refund, and it'll say, do you want to do a refund? And I say yes. And once I do a refund, it says your refund request has been accepted. The postage will be refunded 2 weeks after the original printing date. What the post office will do in this case is it will wait 2 weeks and make sure that the label hasn't been processed. So if you printed out a label, said, I'm not going to send it out, and then change your mind and say, well, I am going to send it out, once you send and use that label, then the refund request is canceled in this case. So if you do a refund request by accident, or you decide, I'm going to use that label anyway, just use the label. It will automatically be will be canceled in this case. So just use the label and you're all set.
Perfect, perfect. Another question that we have, Mike, is in regards to international labels. If you would maybe do a quick overview for us on the international label process, specifically as far as Dazzle, and then I can kind of show the equivalent here on the ECC side.
Sure. So what I'll do is I'll go into File, go into Open Layout, and there are a number of different layouts for international. There is a layout for first-class mail. It's called Small First-Class Mail International. There is a layout for Express Mail International. It's called Large Express Mail International. Priority Mail has two. A small layout, which is used for the small flat rate box or the flat rate envelope only, and then a large Priority Mail International label, which is used for everything else. And that's the one that I'm going to show you right now. So I open up Large Priority Mail International. It says you're used in international mail category, and here we go. So here's the international layout. You'll notice there's Stealth Endicia on this. You put in the name and address, double-click here, and enter in the name and address of who you're sending to, and then click on the print button. Now in our software, again, postage will ask you how heavy is the package, where you, what type of packaging is it. You also have the ability to move the ship to data head. And then on the far right-hand tab, you'll see customs information, and I can put in what I am sending out. So for example, and I would put in the value and what the weight is on this. Now, and also the country of origin. Now, one thing to keep in mind in this case, if you select on a custom form a multiple that you're sending out a multiple, like say, for example, 3 widgets, I need to put in the value and the weight for each of those widgets. Dazzle will take those numbers and multiply it. So what it will do in this case is it will figure that it's 30 ounces for the package and the package value is $75. So keep that in mind. Down below, put in what the type of contents are, and then what you could do is just click that I certify the particulars are correct, and put in put in your name. Don't put in the company name. You need to put in an individual's name in this case. I go ahead and click on print, and the label will print out. I'll show you how the label looks. This is where the customs information will be. Here's where the sender's information, that's where your signature will be. And over here is a round date stamp. And what that means is, with that round date stamp, you don't have to take it to the post office. You can put it in your outgoing mail, and your carrier can pick it up as part of the regular routine. Okay?
Great. Thanks, Mike. And I guess we'll take a quick look on the ECC side of how that process works here. So jumping over to ECC, I actually don't have a sample label here that's international, but just to give you a little bit of an idea, as you pull up a label, as you pull up any order here, and you click on process shipping, the equivalent would be where you can select, just as Mike mentioned, you can basically select the international label type from your particular menu here, and once you select that particular label, ECC will then send out the label information over to Dazzle. And also in regards to the customs forms, ECC in the XML data that it sends over to Dazzle includes all the weight details and the breakdown of what are each of the items included in that parcel, so that Dazzle will then be able to generate the right customs forms for you. So again, ECC is relying entirely on the particular process that Dazzle follows with generating the customs forms. From our side, the ECC application is sending all the details that Dazzle needs in order to generate the particular label along with the particular customs forms. I have a number of other questions that have popped up in between here, so I'll try and get to a couple of them here. So we covered international labels. Another question I have here is it possible to process shipping labels in a multi-user environment? The answer is yes. Basically, although the settings for ECC are specific, are configured across the board, the shipping process itself can be distributed across different people in your office. So as long as you have an additional ECC profile, an additional ECC license configured, each user can go to the shipping tab and configure their own options as far as shipping is concerned, and that way they can all generate labels. Another question I have is, does the weight that is brought over from Endicia to ECC for each order include the, I'm afraid I don't follow the question. The weights that ECC brings over, hopefully I can address it, but the weights that ECC brings over are essentially the total of the weight that came in with the online store order. So in your online store, if you have your items configured with individual weight, then the total weight, oh, thank you for the clarification, the packaging material weight. The total weight that ECC brings in is brought in based on the order in your online store. So as long as you have the weights of your individual items properly set up in your store, when ECC brings them in, it's going to take a total of all the individual weights and then give you the corresponding weight. If you have the Mettler Toledo PS60 scale today, you can also click on the weigh button to weigh the total weight of the package. Sometimes, as you know, the package material total weight might not match. We also do provide additional customization options with ECC. So if there's a particular way in which you're handling your package weights versus individual item weights, and you'll be able to generate the weights based on that. If there are some additional ways, for example, I see a question in regards to OS Commerce. If there are some additional ways in which you have customized the weight display in OS Commerce, if there is a field that has your total weight and you'd like ECC to bring in that field instead of the standard weight field, please talk to our sales team and we can work with you on getting some of the additional features implemented to get that enabled for you. Another question I have here is how soon does Endicia software update the USPS price changes? Mike, you want to take that one?
Yes. We're notified by the post office at least 90 days ahead of any price change what the new rates will be. That will be put into a new version of the software program. We generally have it available within a couple of weeks before the price change occurs. So, for example, the next one is going to be in the middle, if I remember correctly, middle of January. So probably just after New Year's, a new version will be ready with the new rates. The way the update will occur, and generally, is we will rotate customers with the update customers in rotation. So a certain number of you will log into your account, say, the 3rd of January, and you'll receive a notice, and it will say, hey, a new version of the software is available. It has the new rates for, let's say, January 15th. Please download. You will need to have this new version on January 15th. If you're given that opportunity, I would certainly update it at that point. Now, if you do not get a notice or you do not update before the 15th, the software will, the old version of the software will not run on the 15th. It will say, you need to do an update, click here to update your software. You click on that, update the software, and then you're ready to go. But most customers will be updated in enough time before the price change occurs. Good question.
Okay, great. Another question I have here, when ECC updates the web store at the end of the whole process, with your order shipped, does it include the tracking number, and is the information also emailed to the customer at the time? Yes, absolutely. The tracking number is sent back into the tracking number field, depending on your shopping cart. That might vary a little bit, but that information is sent back, and whether the customer is notified or not is actually an option. So under the Orders tab, Configure Order Processing, you can select the status of the order when posting it back to the store and send the order completion email after posting back to the store. So if I check that box here, the customer will get notified and they'll get the order completion email. And this is essentially a trigger of the email that your online store is generating. So if there are changes you would like to make to the email, simply set up your template correctly in your online store, and ECC will trigger the right email. Another question I have here is a question regarding weights getting transferred for Amazon orders for international. That's a good question. Certainly, the best way to take a look at that would be to work with our support team. If you're having any challenges with getting the weights across for your specific items, we are working on some updates to our Amazon integration process, and there's a lot of additional fields that we're going to be bringing in with our next release, which is currently scheduled for next week. So definitely notify our support team, support@webgility.com, and we'll be able to help you with any kind of weight transfer questions or issues you have. Another question I have, boy, I'm glad we gave ourselves some good time to answer a lot of these questions. Question I have here is regarding batch processing. Do we process batch shipping labels? The answer, unfortunately, today is no. ECC is able to generate one label at a time. As you can see, a quick review is required for the label, and then it gets sent over to Dazzle for printing. So we are working on a batch label printing process, and it's a good segue, I guess, into a forward-looking slide I have, and I'll cover that in just a moment. But batch printing is certainly on our roadmap, and I do realize for a lot of the large volume shippers that batch shipping is a pretty critical feature. So we're going to be making some updates to ECC to enable that. Another question will ECC recognize the different shipping methods when they're brought over from the shopping cart and automatically configure Endicia? So the answer is it does recognize the labels, the method that's used, but the way that it works is that it uses your default settings as the starting point. So as long as your online source shipping method matches exactly the shipping method that the Dazzle is looking for, it can kind of do that translation. If, for example, you're using flat rate shipping or the method doesn't match, then ECC doesn't really have a way to kind of connect those two dots, so it will use your default settings. Another question I have is, if I'm using a Mac Parallels environment, can I use Endicia in this case? That's a good question. Mike, if someone's running a Windows environment on a Mac using like a Parallels or a virtual machine, can they use
on a Mac?
Yes. Are they able to run Dazzle in that environment?
Yeah. They just make sure that they sign up for a PC account, and they'd be able to do it. I've had a couple of customers that we have that are running a Mac machine on a Mac, Windows machine, on a Mac, and using the premium account works just fine.
Okay, great. Another question is, international orders require multiple copies. How does that handled with Endicia? Mike, you want to take that one?
Yeah, multiple copies, like the file that I was showing you, we don't need to go back to it, but the label that I was showing you earlier is a large layout, and it requires 4 copies. Endicia will print all 4 copies. There will be 2 copies per page. You would cut the pages in half so you have 1 copy on each page, and then you'll use what's a sticky baggie basically to put the copies and attach the copies to your package. You'll keep one of the copies for yourself. The others go into the sticky baggie.
Great, fantastic. I have another question in regards to insurance and international mail. Mike, you want to take that one? What are kind of the insurance options for international labels?
Well, you can use USPS insurance. USPS insurance will require that you fill in forms and take it to the post office. That means that you can't drop it off in your outgoing mail. Also, the post office will not allow, in this case, will not allow you to hide the dollar amount of postage, so stealth will be turned off. Now, you can use Endicia insurance, and if you use Endicia insurance, there are no forms that you need to fill out, and you can continue to use stealth. So I would definitely use that. Any package that you send out through us can be insured, international as well as domestic. I do not have the rate schedule in front of me right now as far as the insurance is concerned, but you can look on the site map on Endicia.com, and it will show you what the rates are.
Great.
The rates vary depending on whether it's international or domestic.
Perfect. And in terms of the insurance options in ECC, again, because we're simply sending all the data automatically over to Endicia, the Dazzle software, you'll notice here we have an insurance drop-down option where you can select the 2 or 3 choices from here, and ECC will then transfer that over when sending it to the Dazzle software. Covered a number of questions. I'd like to thank you all for attending and appreciate Endicia's participation, and certainly Mike for your time in helping all of our mutual combined customers. For more information, you can certainly visit our website, webgility.com, or for Endicia, go to endicia.com/webgility. And our support center, as always, is support@webgility.com. Mike, anything you'd like to add?
Just again, thank you for your time. If you do have any questions on either Endicia or Webgility, please do not hesitate to give us a call.